6.
Oh, you're so lucky it didn't go live until after you said that. And what is going on, everyone? Welcome back in here to the Oregon Live Show, right here on the Oregon Channel, the voice of college football. We have our usual suspects over here, but as everyone can see, we have the man himself, Max Torres of Ducks Digest. All recruiting knowledge and Duck informational. How are you doing tonight, Max?
I'm doing great, Ben. Thanks for having me on. Ready to talk some Ducks.
And how are the other two doing down there?
We're quacking.
Same old, man. It's nice to have a high quality guest on. So look forward to the show for sure.
Insiders.
Yeah, and everything for Max, all his a bunch of his links are down below in the description of this video. So definitely go click on those at the top of the description and check out his work and give him some follows over there, because Max is constantly at it. He's the inside man for information, especially when it comes to recruiting. He's hard working, even on the off season. And doesn't the off season suck so much?
Yeah, well, I mean, I like to say there is no off season if you cover recruiting, like I like to do. But it's been pretty dead right now, and we are in a dead period. So, I'm kind of scratching my head trying to find things to write about these days. But the light is at the end of the tunnel, and things will be popping pretty soon here.
Yeah, that's where we're at weekly. We're like, oh, what can we talk about this week? It's like last week or the week before, wasn't it? It was the week before last week. We talked about landing and getting the first 2025 official defensive commit in Matthew Johnson. We covered that, except for the one that reclassified from 2026. I can't remember his name, but
Tony Cumberland.
Yeah, it was Matthew Johnson was the first official actual 2025 defensive commit or whatever already. So it was like, but unless you get those little nuggets here and there, yes, as we say, no news is good news, though, also, because if you get news at this point of the year, usually it's probably bad news. Someone's messing up, an injury or something bad is happening.
Yeah, that's like been the case with the Hoops team. I feel like both of them, every headline I read is just like, oh my God, what is happening?
It's been like that all year long too. I mean, Hoops especially, man. That's been a tough one to stomach for Duck fans. I know, especially on like the injury front this year has been beyond brutal. Yeah, it's been a pretty rough year for Duck Hoops.
I've told these guys I don't watch Ducks basketball anymore because they could be literally like 20-0. I would watch a game and they'll lose it, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, Duck World. I am so sorry. I jinxed you. I just don't watch Ducks basketball anymore.
Yeah, I tend to focus on the football stuff, football and recruiting. It's just a little bit more entertaining in my opinion. But I covered a bunch of hoops when I was living in Eugene, a couple of years ago. So that was fun. I can't get too excited for it from afar.
So what do you got the latest on off-season injuries and stuff with Winnington and anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really been prodding too much for that. I mean, obviously they like to keep a lot of that stuff close to the vest, but I'm sure like you guys, I've been looking at all the videos that they're posting on social media, and it looks like Noah's, moving pretty regularly now. With some of those workout videos and the height videos, the climb, I think is what they're calling it. But it looks like he's getting back. I don't know I can't say he's at 100%, but he looks like he's doing pretty well. And I mean, Oregon's in about as good of a shape as you can ask for health-wise with spring football starting next month. And I think the other guy that you probably want to keep an eye on is Jurion Dickey, seeing that kind of hampered him a little bit in his true freshman season. And I got asked one of the other day on my channel, kind of like 5 guys from the 23 class that could maybe play a bigger role in the 24 season. And I think Jurion Dickey has to be at the top of that list because I mean, just for all the talent that he was, how lauded he was coming out of high school. I mean, I've gotten to see him in person a couple times, and that dude definitely looks like he could be a difference maker. It's just a matter of staying healthy and then being able to kind of get your legs underneath you.
Yeah, I think that's what we talked about. We were like, we have not seen, even in a lot of the quote unquote garbage time this last year during blowouts, you didn't see him do much at all. And I guess some of that maybe was injuries. But also, like we said, the depth of the receiving room, especially, was so good. You didn't need to see him much either. And is that going to be a problem this year, maybe, if he can't stay healthy? Because, I mean, Oregon's not like they've let up on bringing receivers in either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be a problem this year. I think it'd definitely be a little bit of a concern if we went another season kind of without seeing him. I at least expect him to be in the 2 deep at this point. And with how much Oregon was blowing people out last year, that's an appropriate question to ask yourself. Like, hey, why are we not seeing a little bit more of this guy? Because I feel like that's like one of those underrated, I don't even know if I'd say coaching strategies, but like, especially with Ty Thompson, like that was one of the things I was looking for. I'm like, all right, is this game out of hand? You don't have to worry about losing this one. Now you got to say, okay, here's kind of the new game starts now once it's taken care of, right? Like who are the young guys we can get in? Who needs to get some reps to get comfortable in the system, get comfortable with the college level? So I think that's something I'm really hoping that the coaches can really take advantage of, because even though it's going to be a pretty tough conference, I think that they have all the talent in the world on paper to really blow some guys out.
I guess that's a good question too. Is and one of the questions I had coming up was about the 2024 like recruiting class in general, but also some of the transfers. Is this next year? I mean, after this next season, are we expecting to see a couple quarterback transfers? Because obviously this year we have Luke Moga coming in. You still have Novosad. You have the quarterback none of us can remember ever behind him. I don't know why none of us can ever remember who the other quarterback is.
Are you talking about Dante Moore?
No. We have Moore and obviously Gabriel coming in, but our other quarterback on our roster.
You're talking about like a non-scholarship player right now?
He was like the fourth.
Oh, Brock?
Yeah, Brock. Yeah, there it is.
Brock Thomas, I think.
Yeah, Brock Thomas.
Yeah,
there
Brock
it is. There
Thomas.
it is. For some reason, every time I think about our depth chart, it just stops at like Novosad and Moga, and then I forget. I forget Brock Thomas.
The local.
I don't know why.
Sheldon.
I mean, that's it. We have Dante Moore though, and Gabriel coming in. I'm assuming we're going to probably lose a quarterback somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I mean, and I hope I'm not talking over the other guys here. If you guys want to hop in, feel free. But I feel like it looks like that. Just it's a numbers game at quarterback more than any other position. So you talk about Gabriel will be the starter. It looks like for next year, right? And then after that, you got Achilles Smith Jr. who comes in.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's not really expected to play as a true freshman. I think Dante Moore, it looks like it's going to be a battle between him and Novosad. Maybe Moga has a good year, probably redshirting this year. So they have probably one of the best quarterback rooms in the country right now, at least on paper. I mean, that's the big thing that I think it's important to kind of think about at this point in the offseason. Like, as a recruiting guy, it's hard for me to not get excited about these additions that they get, whether it's out of the portal or high school ranks, but it really doesn't mean anything until they get to Eugene. Like, you got to hang on to that commitment and sign them. And then, how quickly can they put it together? Because in today's era of football, like that margin for error or just the window that guys have to ultimately make something happen, I think it's kind of shrinking. So there's definitely some pressure to make something happen. I would say probably by the end of your second year. So whether that's redshirt freshman or true sophomore, like if you haven't kind of put something together at that point, it's like, hey, do we need to kind of reevaluate things here? And, is this the fit that we thought it was?
Yeah, so I mean, something obviously, I've seen a lot as a topic of conversation is, the Ducks are sitting at, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're at 92 scholarship players right now. Got to get down to that 85 threshold. I don't, I'm not necessarily looking for like exact names per se, just because, we never really know for certainty. There's not a lot of certainty in college football, but like what position groups, in your opinion, do you think that we're going to see some players hit in the spring portal? Because obviously, with all the additions that come in, we're going to have to see some of like the healthy subtractions to kind of hit that threshold. So where do you think you could see that happening?
I think the two positions that come to mind for me probably are cornerback and wide receiver, just because there are so many bodies at both of those positions, and some of them, like I was just talking about, they've been around for a little bit, and we really haven't seen too much of them. So I think it opens an interesting conversation, because you have to get down to the roster limit, obviously, like you were talking about, Derek, but it also kind of makes me think, like, I wonder if this is like another benefit or like some kind of other layer that we see with NIL. Like, are there maybe players, not just at Oregon, but anywhere, that maybe aren't playing very much, but hey, they're getting, a little bit thrown their way, and they like where they're going to school. They have their friends out there. And I feel like that's maybe not the best thing, because it's like, you come to play college football, but it's just, there's so much going on in the sport right now. I wonder how many guys are like, hey, I'm cool being a practice player. I think about like Blue Mountain State, if people ever saw that show, something like that, but probably not happening too much at a place like Oregon, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, we've talked about that too before, and like you brought up Ty Thompson. We're like, Ty's gone after this year if he's not the starter, and then bringing in other quarterbacks, of course, and he knew he wasn't going to start. He left. But, we've seen Oregon hold on to other quarterbacks before who never started, but they were always that, like, just, I like where I'm at. I'm happy. I love the team. I love the school. And that was what Ty was. I love Ty. I wish him the best in the world. But that's it. Yeah, I wonder if that's going to happen. You're going to see that with some of these players. Maybe they're just going, I'm in a good spot here. This is cool. Maybe they were a low 3-star, got picked up, and they're just like, hey, I'm making some money. I like where I'm at. Smooth ride, basically. Maybe. I hope not. Obviously, you want to see everyone compete, but there's going to be a few of those, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I just feel like there's even like, I don't know, when you just think about competing and just the landscape of the game, like there's so much going on with the portal. I know one of the huge topics that has been circulating over the weekend was the guys that tried to jump Cam Newton at a 7-on-7 tournament. Like, that was blowing up. I just feel like there's a fine line that needs to be drawn between those who really want to compete and those who are just there for the hype. So that was kind of just something that's been on my mind a little bit, because I do go out to these 7-on-7 tournaments, and to see a guy like Cam Newton, who's, his career maybe didn't go the way he expected it to go. Certainly on the tail end, kind of got brought in, like, when he's on the Patriots, I think, obviously that wasn't the ideal situation, but like, he's incredibly accomplished, and he's doing what he can to give back to these kids, the game, the community, pour into them. And that's the thanks that he's getting. That's kind of one of those stories that just makes your stomach churn a little bit, and it kind of makes you scratch your head, like, where are we at in the high school football part of things? Because obviously that's a big part of their development.
Yeah, exactly.
That's news to me, actually. But
where you what are your thoughts on some of the guys that we got out of the portal, like Evan Stewart and whatnot? Where do you think those guys and the running back we got, where do you think they're going to sit?
Yeah. Evan Stewart is someone that's really easy to get excited about. Didn't have like unbelievable numbers or production at Texas A&M, but certainly some respectable production. And like, he just had a little workout video that he posted today, or I think his wide receivers coach, Margin Hooks, posted, and he's like, he trains all the top wideouts that come out of Texas, and like the dude's footwork and twitchiness, change of direction, like, it's hard not to be excited about a guy like that. I started hearing about them being a real contender when he was coming out to campus and just talking to some people, like, hey, I think this might happen. So that very well could be their wide receiver one this year. That's probably the easy take to make, but I want to see more from Trayshawn Holden at wide receiver, because I think that he's someone who is really poised to make an impact because he didn't get a lot of opportunities necessarily last year. But when he did, he really made the most of them, I felt like. And the Fiesta Bowl was obviously a great example. But that wide receiver room is going to be loaded as ever. Hopefully we can see some of the young guys play early because that wasn't the case last year with Jurion, like we were talking about. Jay Harris, Spaz, who you were asking about, I think he was someone who kind of caught some people off guard. Coming from Northwest Missouri State, I don't think I could tell you a single player that I know that came from there.
D2. I mean,
D2. But I feel like he kind of filled a little bit of a roster need. He's the biggest back on the roster now, I think, like 6'2", 215. So, you lose Dante Dowdell, but you gain a guy like Jay Harris, going to be a three-headed monster kind of a deal, I think, is the expectation with Noah Whittington and Jordan James, who I think I was writing about him earlier today. Like, I don't know if he's going to be around again after this season because he is playing really good football. But as far as Jay Harris, people will say what they want to about him coming from a D2 school, but Carlos Laughlin's got an eye for talent and hasn't let Oregon down yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that brings it in. I mean, in the state of things, because I mean, obviously the recruiting and the transfer portal the recruiting class was amazing, and the transfer portal was amazing, and that's removing Gabriel and more. We're just looking at other positions, and it was still a really good fill. Who do you think is the most impactful recruit, maybe, that will come in and have like an instant impact with the team?
So
who do you think, maybe?
Just to clarify, are you saying portal and high school or just high school?
Just the recruiting, the high school recruiting.
Okay, just high school.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we're looking at the 24 class, this is an interesting one. I don't want to go with the easy answer. I want to push myself a little bit here. I'm gonna do two guys that kind of come to mind. I think Aaron Flowers is a guy that it's really easy to get excited about. I saw him out in San Antonio for the All-American Bowl, and he really looked the part. Obviously battle tested coming from the state of Texas. Really decorated guy. It really felt like every time I saw an update about his high school team and their journey through the playoffs, like he was just kind of backpacking them. Like he was the driving force that kind of kept them going, and an awesome kid. Really, really fun to talk to, and great ball skills. And just the Ducks need a game-changing safety. I think they got some great pieces, right, with Kobe Savage coming in as well from K-State. But I think that in an era where the portal is becoming so popular, you needed to bring in some young talent. There are some guys that are going to be able to be game changers, program changers that are going to stick around for a while. Oregon's had some good safeties in recent years, right? You had Evan Williams and Bennett Williams. Verone McKinley was great, but Javon Holland, I think, is really the standard that they're trying to work towards. And I think, Aaron Flowers is a guy that could help you get you there. So I'm super excited about him. And then I also think that, what else? Who else did I have here? I was going to maybe say Dakota Fields. He's another recruit I'm pretty excited about. Was hearing about him getting some interceptions against Bo Nix in bowl game practice. So, certainly something that kind of catches your eyes a little bit, but it's like, all right, we can't get too ahead of ourselves here. But he's a guy that I think is made of all the right stuff. I mean, just perfect frame for this defense, 6'2", 185. He can run, he can cover. I think it's just really, he was a guy I got to follow pretty closely out here in SoCal. You just want to see him play with that fire a little bit more because he's a really soft-spoken kid. But I think he just needs to, realize, hey, I can be that guy. And I'm super stoked that he enrolled early because I think the cornerback spot is maybe seeing a little bit of an overhaul this offseason.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's definitely been one of the weaker points in the Oregon program the last few years has been our coverage in the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, so just kind of sticking with like recruiting, obviously, I can see the sparkle in your eye when we talk about it. Something you thoroughly enjoy talking about.
Oh yeah.
Someone who's been getting a lot of smoke in the 25 class that, like, just watching film for myself that I get excited about, just kind of seeing some versatility that takes place is Jaden Hudson. Another California kid, safety. What do you know about him? He's one that I personally like watching his film. He looks like he brings some good stuff to the table. I'm just kind of curious to hear your opinion on him.
Yeah, I think he's someone that is certainly an intriguing prospect, right? When we were talking about guys like Javon Holland, right? And then you look at Jaden Hudson, who's also from the East Bay, Pittsburgh, California, where Jaden Rashada came out of high school. He's now at Arizona State. So just to kind of get people a little bit of background here, Jaden's a great player. You watch his film and the ball skills are great. The football IQ is clearly there. He's got a great feel for the game. His production was really impressive. Not somebody who maybe is a burner in terms of just how fast they can run, but that guy eats up so much of the field. And I think that's kind of the role that I could see for him in that Oregon defense, is just eating up a lot of space and covering a lot of ground. So I think that he's a really important recruit for Chris Hampton, right? In this class, the top defensive guys have pretty much been directed to Oregon the past couple of years, right? Whether it's Dylan Williams, Braden Platt, Elijah Rushing, if you want to call Arizona West Coast. But I think that Oregon's in a great spot there. His cousin Eric Dargan played at Oregon recently, back to 2014. So I guess not too recently, but there's some family connections there. And I think that he's going to end up at Oregon when it's all said and done.
I hope so. That's one personally where I thoroughly enjoy watching the film, seeing the product that he puts on the field. So that's one I really hope that when it's all said and done, they're really able to close on. I would look forward to securing his commitment for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against Tosh Lupoi when it comes to guys from the East Bay.
Do you see guys like Dakota Fields and Iffy Igwanli or whatever his name? I can't remember pronounce his last name.
Sione? Yeah.
Do you see guys like that getting some first string burn at all this year?
First team might be a little bit of a stretch right now in February. If I had to give you a straight up answer, just because cornerback is easily one of the most difficult positions to play. I think one of the big ways that I look at it, that people have been telling me, it's like you're doing everything a receiver is doing, but you're doing it in reverse, backpedaling. So it's really a position that I've grown a lot of respect for recently. I think you could see a good amount of those guys throughout the year. Sione, even though he's his first year at Oregon, he's a pretty seasoned JUCO guy, so he's played a lot of football at College of San Mateo. That's one of the better junior colleges in the state. Bennett Williams, George Moore, a couple former Ducks that came through there, really good coaches. So you could see Sione there, especially with his frame, 6'4", 185. Like, not a lot of corners are like that. But Iffy is actually a guy that I was pretty surprised to kind of see. I shouldn't say surprised, but just to see the week that he had at the Under Armour All-American Bowl. Like, he was a top performer that was always highlighted. I think he had a pick, if not a pick 6 maybe, in the All-American, or that All-American Bowl. I saw him when he and Michael Van Buren, the rest of the St. Francis guys, came out to SoCal to play Bosco, and I thought Iffy looked good. I mean, you talk about a guy who has a really good college frame like Dakota Fields. I think Iffy might have looked even better. Not to get like too physically oriented here, but like Iffy was super cut up, big guy, could run, had some pretty good plays in coverage, even though I remember one of them was flagged as PI. So I don't know if I'm ready to say first team reps, but I kind of expect those guys to be in the mix there. And they're definitely going to give some of these returners like Rob Pleasant and Dalen Austin, although Austin was kind of hurt last year too. They're kind of gonna be nipping at their heels a little bit, I think.
We talked about some of the transfers coming in, like Evan Stewart, which, yeah, his numbers weren't flashy at A&M, but also A&M's offense wasn't exactly flashy. So I'd say his numbers were actually probably more impressive, maybe despite the lack of offense.
Yeah, I was in
freshman year and stuff like that.
I was in a Spaces this morning, and we have a guy that is in there quite regularly from A&M, and he was telling us that the first 3 games that Connor Wegman and Evan Stewart played together, Evan Stewart had 148 yards receiving, 155 yards receiving, and like 112. And then when Wegman got hurt, Stewart's production went down.
Yeah, A&M's offense has not been exactly the most captivating the last couple of years, to say the least. So outside of like Evan Stewart and Dante Moore, which we expect him, obviously, he's going to sit behind Gabriel. We expect Gabriel to just go right into the starting spot. Is there another transfer that you see, an actual transfer that you can think of just off the top of your head that's going to have like the biggest impact immediately?
I really like all the DBs that they brought in. If you watched Oregon play Washington at all last year, you definitely saw Jabbar Muhammad. And I'm super stoked about him. Brandon Johnson, I don't know as much about, but he really flashed on the tape over at Duke, played with some fire, guy that was around the ball a lot, could come down and lay the hit in the run as well if you needed him to. Cam Alexander, I think some people saw him hop in and were kind of a little bit surprised. UTSA, not the highest level of football necessarily. I'm not trying to slight them, but maybe not. They're not at that Oregon level, but I think Oregon really needed some speed in that secondary, right? Guys like Washington's Rome Odunze and Jalen Polk did their fair share of damage, and I think that you have some good pieces there, right? With Jaleel Florence being one of them. But you really needed to add some more talent at that spot because it's a premium position. So getting Cameron Alexander there is huge. But the guy that I'm most excited about, maybe not most excited about, but I think a guy who could certainly make an impact is Jamari Caldwell, the Houston transfer along the D line. When you lose the amount of guys that Oregon lost along the defensive line and the caliber of production that they had, Brandon Dorless, Popo Amavai, Casey Rogers, Taki Taimani, huge Casey Rogers fan, by the way, just an amazing human being. I want to get him on my podcast, but like those guys were all studs. I think you needed a guy who had some good experience, had some good production, 6'1", 325. He'll fit right in physically. And then they'll help bring some of those younger guys along that we've seen landing in the staff sign in the 23 and 24 classes.
What about you, Derek Spaz? What do you think? Because I also have to second, I am a huge Casey Rogers fan also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One I thought was pretty intriguing is the Brandon Johnson one. I think that's one that kind of flies under the radar a little bit in the secondary there, obviously coming over from Duke. But, the more I was digging into him, one thing that really stuck out to me that I kind of like had to double take on and check a couple spots was he had 8 tackles for loss last year. That would have led the Ducks defense had he been a Duck and done that last year. So that's pretty impressive coming from a nickel position. So he's one I'm definitely kind of excited to see bring a little versatility to the secondary. Obviously, that tells us he's able to crash the ball and play a factor in the run defense when need be. But for myself, he's one I'm kind of intrigued to see, just to kind of see what his role looks like when the season hits.
Yeah, especially when you see what the Ducks did with Kyrie Jackson or Tysheem Johnson and Evan Williams coming off the edge with those DB pressures. I really liked how the staff drew that up because it always felt like they called it at just the right time and it was super effective.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the areas that I think Oregon, I don't know, they just didn't seem to get as much of a rush a lot of times on quarterback, especially against the bigger teams like Washington and whatnot. We seem to have a little more of a tougher time getting to the quarterback. And so I was hoping maybe we might beef up that line so that they can get some more push and get more quarterback pressure, which I think can be especially needed against teams like Ohio State and Michigan in this Big Ten.
Yeah, I really liked what I saw from Oregon's defensive front last year. I mean, it's easy to point to those games like Washington, right? When the outcome didn't fall in their favor, but I don't think there was a better quarterback at getting rid of the ball than Michael Penix. And that Washington line was really, really good. I feel like Fatanu, the left tackle, I want to say he was a guy that I'm hearing about a ton leading up to the combine and then the draft here. And then Roger Rosengarten. I mean, if you guys have been following Oregon recruiting for a bit, I thought he was going to go to Oregon, who signed with the Huskies out of the state of Colorado. So they had some really good pieces there. And I mean, not necessarily some blue chip guys that you're seeing Oregon recruit. So I think that Kalen DeBoer, you got to give him a tip of the cap to just, getting the most out of his roster. I know not a lot of Oregon fans are going to like to hear me say that. But man, yeah, Washington was just a phenomenal team. And I was really glad that I was able to see them in Vegas, even though the game didn't fall Oregon's way.
Yeah, and I think to the credit of what you're saying too is, Washington, the game plan for Washington was totally different than some of the other teams where you had to deal with those receivers. You couldn't be bringing the secondary on blitzes as much because you had to cover those receivers. You needed everyone on that back end as much as possible. They were still getting torched half the time. But thinking of those Big Tens, what as we have always said here multiple times, it still hasn't set in yet. It's not there. Like right now, your flag is just Oregon. Obviously, you see on mine, you can see the Pac-12 logo. I'm going to have to change that next season. It hasn't set in yet. So what is your expectations going into this? Because this is a whole different world and realm. I mean,
it's pretty crazy. There's no doubt about it. I remember when USC and UCLA went, I was like, dang, is this really happening? And then I always had a feeling Oregon was going to find a good landing spot. So now that it's really happening, I mean, I think seeing them in the Big Ten rankings when it comes to recruiting, like that was one of the things that kind of flipped it on for me in terms of like, hey, this is really happening now. But I got to go out to that game in Columbus when they beat the Buckeyes in 2021, and that was one of the coolest football experiences of my life. And I really think that Dan Lanning has the Ducks, rocking and rolling, and I think that I don't know if I want to say that they should be the Big Ten favorites, but man, they're right up there. They're no worse than like top 3 in the Big Ten. I mean, if it were a different coach, I think I would have a little bit more hesitancy because the Ducks weren't the best on the road under Mario Cristobal. But Dan Lanning's teams show up, man. Like, I feel like he's really got the culture that he wants in place. He's bringing the guys in that he wants to and he needs to. The coaching staff has been really, really solid. Not too many defections, just a couple here and there. And man, they have everything they need to really make some noise there. I think you kind of got to build out the 2 deep at a couple of positions, right? D-line, I think, is one of the ones that's probably one of the biggest question marks for me heading into next year. Not because there isn't talent, it's just because we don't know what that group's going to look like. I think that, Ben Roberts is someone that people seem to be excited about along the D-line, Jamari Caldwell, who I already talked about. And then there's some guys in that 23 class like Amari Washington and Michael Gardner that I think we're going to be hearing from. And then hopefully you can get some of these true freshmen to really make an impact, like your Jericho Johnsons or Elijah Rushing, Aiden Breland. So the talent's there for sure. But we got to see what happens in that spring game and then, those first 3 games of the season to really kind of get their legs under them and see kind of what they have.
We're all looking forward to hosting Illinois. That's all we're looking forward to.
You're going to be out here for that, Max?
I don't think I'm going to be out there for the Illinois game. I want to be out there for the Ohio State game if I can. I still got to look into my spring game travel arrangements, but I'm hoping to make it out for that one as well. But luckily, it's not too hard to get from Long Beach to Eugene.
No,
Yeah, Spaz especially has been trying to get a Eugene meetup to do a game, and I'm like, from Texas, it's a bit of a ways. For me, it was easy going to the Tech game this last year. It's just a nonstop flight to Lubbock. for that Texas Tech game. That was a easy
That looked
one.
like a crazy environment, Ben. I mean, you got to be there. What was that like?
Oh, Sam got hit with a tortilla midway through, and I was right next to. I was like 9 rows behind the bench, and I've told these guys. I was texting him going, Lupoy is tearing into these guys. You know, when they were like down 14 points or 13 or 14 points in the third quarter or start of the fourth, he was just ripping into those guys on the sideline, and tortillas are flying. The student section was like 5 people over. And so, of course, when that pick 6 came at the end to like really just seal it, they were just like, because they were just talking mad trash the entire game, you know.
Well, Max, one more question that I wanted to ask before your time is up here tonight. When you're taking a look at the 24 class, obviously it was one of the best in school history, depending on where you look. It's easy to look at guys like Elijah Rushing and Jeremiah McClellan, even Aaron Flowers, some of these top 100 guys. But when all's said and done, say we're sitting 2-3 years down the road here, who is kind of an underrated, under the radar type of guy that you think could end up being, a staple of this Oregon Ducks team going forward?
Ooh, love that question. Man, again, really hard to give just one answer. Dylan Gresham is a guy I'm excited about. Roger Saliapaga is another one. I think with Dylan Gresham, I mean, he just had such a crazy junior year that it would be hard for anybody to follow up that kind of production their senior year. So there was a little bit of a stats drop off, but just from everybody that I'm talking to, I feel like he is someone that I keep getting told, hey, you got to keep an eye on him. Like, I think he's someone that really fits this Oregon offense. Junior Adams, I think, kind of found a little bit of a diamond in the rough kind of a deal. You remember, I mean, the wide receiver spot was not a huge question mark, but just in those last couple of days before the signing period, you hear about Dylan Gresham taking some visits to Arizona and USC. And then, maybe you were just going to have him and Jack Wrestler, but then the Ducks flip McClellan and Pelham as well. And then they also get Bear, who's 2 years out. But I think Dylan Gresham is going to be a guy that is probably going to be a mainstay. And then I'm also going to talk about Saliapaga, kind of a wide receiver tight end hybrid. I think he definitely reminds me a lot of Terrence Ferguson coming out of high school, just in the way that he got used. Got moved all over the place. Not necessarily your true tight end, like a guy who puts his hand in the dirt a lot, but crazy ball control, can make something happen after the catch. And I think that with the guys that Drew Maringer's brought in, Kenyon Sadiq flashed a little bit as a true freshman, but obviously not a whole lot of opportunity with Herbert and Ferguson there. I think that Saliapaga is a guy that we could be singing Drew Maringer's praises for in a couple years from now.
I love it. Love to hear it. I'm like I said, it's always easy to kind of take a look at some of these, the more flashy, the high profile guys. But I think, almost where you find your meat is when you're able to find these diamond in the roughs, as you will. And obviously, like Dylan Gresham, that man set all sorts of records his junior year. So that was pretty insane. But yeah, I'm excited he was one that was able to stick around and ended up signing with the Ducks at the very end there. I mean, I know our wide receiver class, just with the late flips that kind of took place, it was, it does, like, the importance of that didn't really show quite as much just because of what the final product looked like. But I think he's also one where I'm kind of excited to see what he's able to do, 2-3 years down the line.
And just looking to 2025, like they're probably going to lose most of their starters from this upcoming season, right? Trayshawn Holden, Tez, Gary, maybe even Evan Stewart if he has a good enough year to try to go pro. So that's why you got to get in on these young guys early and kind of know their stories. And a cool little story with Dylan Gresham's commitment. Derek, I don't know if you've ever been out to San Jacinto. Not a whole lot going on. I mean, it was like an hour and a half or so drive for me from Long Beach, and like I think it was either him or his coach. Somebody said this is cow country. So just like, I'm not trying to, rag on San Jacinto, but just not a lot going on. And then to say that you have a guy who's going to the University of Oregon, I think it's a testament to what they've built at that program. I think they're the Tigers, I want to say. But just kind of a cool story, just getting to go to these commitment ceremonies when these guys are in high school and then see them kind of performing on Saturday. Like that's one of my favorite parts of the job because you get to see them early. And then, I'm not in Eugene like I used to be, but seeing them put on is always really exciting.
Well, and bringing in all these guys, even if they're like we were kind of mentioned earlier, like maybe they're a low 3-star. Guess what? Look at some of the best players in Oregon history. They were not 4 and 5 stars. Darren Thomas, I don't think was a 4-star. I think he was a 3-star. Mariota, I think, was a low 3-star. Herbert was, basically a walk-on. Almost, I mean, that's where you find your depth and you find those, like you said, diamond in the roughs who all of a sudden take over that spot. And those are the ones you need.
Okay, Max, who's your surprise offensive player this year that is going to come up and just surprise everybody?
Ooh, that's a good one. Man. Let's see. I'm really not good at being put on the spot. Sorry.
This is why I told you don't prepare, because also this is why we do this, because it's like just wing it off top of your head as much as you can, because that makes it the most fun too. Because if you just have it lined up, it's kind of like
Yeah. I would have to say either Poncho at center. I think he's someone I'm super stoked about. I mean, he wasn't a crazy highly rated recruit. I mean, he was a 4-star, and I think he was an All-American. So I guess I should walk that back a little bit. But the first time I heard about him, he wasn't, a happening recruit. It's always fun to follow the story out of the guys from Hawaii. He has an older brother on the team. You don't see a lot of offensive linemen crack the rotation super early. And I think that Oregon's got a great deal with what they're looking at along the O-line, seeing that they got center taken care of for the next 2 years now. Arguably one of the most important positions. Now you got to look at what's going to happen with the tackles because you're going to lose Connerly and Cornelius. So I want to give a little bit of love to Poncho. I'm super excited about him. And then how about Jordan James? I mean, I think he had a really quiet, amazing year. I think when Noah Whittington went down, a lot of Oregon fans were probably, understandably pretty upset. But just with the way that Lachlan has acquired talent and coached him up, you're seeing why that was a guy that was committed to Georgia before he flipped to Oregon and why he was one of the best recruits in Tennessee. So I think that, he's in for a breakout year if he hasn't already broken out. And I'm a huge fan of his.
Yeah, I think he could easily go for over 1,000 this year because he had 7 something in a little over half the season.
Probably.
I think he was 750 yards.
Well, and near 7 yards a carry too. That's that's insane.
759, 11 touchdowns, 7.1 a carry.
7 yards a carry is that's wild.
That's insane.
I mean, you look at when Bucky Irving came over, we were like, who's this? And then we were like, oh, hi, Bucky. It's like,
obviously Max on the recruiting trail knew who he was, but us casual Duck fans were like, who's this Bucky Irving guy? I didn't know who he was. And I'm a huge Duck fan, have been for my entire life, but it's like I was like, who's this kid? Where did he come from? Oh, he came from Michigan State. Oh, okay.
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Yeah, that's right.
I was a little familiar with him just because, I'm pretty familiar with the Big Ten landscape and stuff. I lived in Minneapolis for a couple of years and stuff, but he was buried behind Ibrahim, the running back in Minnesota at the time, who was pretty prominent name there. But even then, it's like he definitely kind of took over and he exploded on the scene. And I don't think there's a lot of people who quite thought he had the capability to be what he is today. So it's like we'd be kind of amiss to think that there's not somebody in this portal cycle or just a recruit in general who's going to come onto the scene and kind of just blow up, man. They get their opportunities and someone's going to shine through that you're not quite expecting.
Well, then I always like that story where Bucky was like, "Yeah, Minnesota didn't want to call me Bucky because Wisconsin. They wanted to call, so he didn't like that apparently."
Wow.
Yeah, no, Bucky was a stud, man. I mean, he clearly wasn't at 100% in the Pac-12 title game, which was a bummer. Probably one of my biggest head scratchers of the season, honestly. Like for a guy who clearly wasn't at 100%, it really felt like they were kind of force feeding him. And Jordan James was doing really well. So it's hard to question the coaching staff too much because they came back and they had a shot to win it. But in the spirit of what could have been, you just kind of find yourself asking that because he definitely didn't look like himself. I mean, he was running into the backs of his blockers, and he's someone that I think was traditionally, praised for his patience and his vision, and his ability to make something happen after the first contact. So, kind of a bummer that was the way things went, but still one of the best running backs to come through Eugene in the past couple of years. I mean, my God, the position is just loaded. I hope he can do something in the NFL because I think Royce is the main guy at running back that's doing something in the NFL now, and I mean, I feel like he really hasn't lived up to his college career because he was a stud at Oregon, and I really thought he was a shoo-in to just be a beast in the NFL.
Yeah, he has not been had the greatest of luck.
He kept getting buried on the depth chart, just having some miscues here and there, and yeah, he has not done a whole lot. But hopefully, Bucky does get his shot doing something. He deserves it, at least a shot.
Drafted, Max.
What's up?
Where do you see Bucky getting drafted?
Oh man, it's tough to say because I feel like he has all those tools that you want. He really fits the NFL game. You want to, like, if you think of all the best running backs, McCaffrey is obviously one of them. Maybe I'm just saying that because I'm a Niners fan, but all the best running backs I feel like can do a little bit of everything and they can impact the passing game too. But he is on the smaller side. So I wonder how much that's maybe going to limit him. I think he's probably a guy that can help himself out with a good combine. Was he invited to the combine? I'm not entirely sure, but maybe like a fourth or fifth rounder. The draft is super hard. I mean, I'm usually pretty focused on recruiting, so I feel like those are kind of two different animals. But I guess that's kind of what I would say right now. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of like really palpable, tangible excitement around him compared to some of these other top running backs.
Yeah, I could see him as like more of a returner, special teams returner, and maybe that kind of second slot option, almost like running back, out of the backfield type of guy, maybe, but maybe not like your first and maybe not your primary running back.
Isn't used in San Francisco.
What was that?
Kind of like Juszczyk is used in San Francisco. Like
yeah.
Guy that come out of the backfield, catch a pass, and give you that 2-3 gut yards that you need to get that first down.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well,
so does Bo and Troy go in the first round?
Man, I think it's possible. I mean, I love seeing Troy getting mocked to the Chiefs. I know a lot of Oregon fans will probably be happy with that. I mean, you can't really go to a better situation than that. I mean, the new dynasty in the NFL, I still can't believe they won with just the sheer lack of receiver talent they had. And I'm just super sad as a Niners fan. But, I mean, you got Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, so it's basically all you need, and a great defense that definitely didn't get it.
Wild card Taylor Swift.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Stop. Don't. Stop it.
But I feel like Jackson Powers Johnson could be the first duck off the board. I mean, the dude, he crushed it, and he has had as good of an offseason as you could have aside from, re-aggravating his injury in Mobile. He kind of played just enough, I feel like, or maybe plenty. I feel like that's kind of the takeaway is that he showed plenty in Mobile against guys from all across the country to really solidify his standing as the top interior guy. You don't see centers get taken that high. The tackle are a much more premium position, I think. So you'll probably see, I think Jackson would probably be the first one off the board. If not, maybe Bo. I just want to see Oregon get 2 first-rounders because I think that's really special territory to be in. They haven't done it since 2015 when they had Marcus and Eric Armstead. So I think that all 3 guys have the chance to go in the first round, but of the 3, I'm probably the most confident that JPJ will be the one.
Dang, that's that. So you're thinking JPJ first round?
I think so because I mean, I don't know, maybe because it's just such a quarterback heavy draft. I'm just wondering what GMs are going to look at Bo and like say this really sets him apart from some of these other guys because he's not the biggest quarterback, 6'2", I want to say 210 or so. And I'm not trying to slight Bo at all because he was one of my favorite Ducks I've covered since I've been on the job. But it's just like I don't think physically he does anything that's just like mind blowing. He's had his fair share of like spectacular plays, but like I don't think he has like the strongest arm in the draft. I think he's kind of like he does everything really well, which is good. But like I think that's like when you're looking at guys that are really going at the top, like a Caleb Williams, for example, like, his ability to just throw those balls off platform and like improvise. I think that's good, but it's not going to translate as well as some people maybe hope it will to the NFL, because if you're constantly going off platform and improvising, like how are you going to do when like, you got guys coming at you and you got to make your reads and everything. So a little bit of a tangent. I don't know. I think Jackson Powers Johnson has the highest draft stock, it feels like right now out of all 3.
Yeah, I'm seeing projections 20 to 25 with him right now.
I would think Franklin would be in the 10 to 20 range.
Franklin's late first round is what I'm seeing, anywhere from 25 to 32. A lot of people have Kansas City taking him with the last pick in the first round.
Well, I don't want to keep Max here too long because obviously Max is a very, very busy man over there at Ducks Digest. Always having to write stuff and come up with new tasks. So I wanted to bring up it's kind of a weird topic, but it was kind of like, hey, let's spice things up around here. This is Spaz's fault.
Oh,
this is
no.
Spaz's fault.
Oh Lord.
I'm just writing this down for myself for later. So Derek's in California. Max, you're in California. I'm in Texas. Spaz is the only one actually living in Oregon right now. Is it bad or not a good thing to be a fan of Oregon when you don't live in Oregon? Because apparently, Spaz, tell the story. There's a bit of a hate trend going on with Duck fans who don't live in Oregon. Tell the story, Spaz. You brought it up. It's your fault.
There's a few. There's a few Oregon people in some of the spaces that are frustrated. They don't understand how we can have this show going when we really don't have anybody on the ground per se covering the team, getting the info, being inside the program, whether it be alum or whatever.
That's program.
Yeah. So it's like I've been getting a little bit of flack from people saying, well, you need to, if you're the local guy, you need to step up more and get down to more games and give your show more content from inside the trenches.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm a little bit torn because like I miss Eugene every single day, really. I lived in the Northwest for 6 years before I moved down here. So I felt super comfortable, and, everybody I feel like I run into in Eugene is just super nice and welcoming. But I mean, if you're on the West Coast, it's easy to get to Eugene. And then, I mean, Ben, I think I heard there's a nonstop from Dallas. I want to say maybe that's on United. but Eugene's not an easy place to typically get to if we're just looking at flight prices. But location-wise, on the West Coast, it's not too hard to get to. So I think that I don't know. I think you can be a fan of Oregon, anywhere you're at.
Well, then I'm like I told you before we went on air too. I'm from Gresham originally, like a mile from the Portland city limit. That's where I grew up. So it's not like, oh, he's in Texas. He's just it's like, no, I grew up in Oregon. Derek's the problem here.
Yeah, like myself, I fell in
Derek.
love with the team during the Dennis Dixon era. Obviously they were really fun to watch there, just even being in Wisconsin. And obviously picked a great time to be a little kid jumping into Duck football fandom. Transitioning to Jeremiah Masoli and Darren Thomas and obviously Marcus Mariota and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I understand it. That's a pretty common argument I see online is they're like, well, Oregon's fan base, they're like they're all over the country, which you can look at it one of two ways. Either you can choose to look at it as it's a national brand. You have fans all over the country, which is great. I lived in New Jersey and Massachusetts for a while. There were Duck fans out there. I know some more Duck fans back in Wisconsin, obviously down here in Cali. I was driving on the highway today, back home from work, and right in front of me, there was an Oregon Duck little license plate holder. So, I mean, it's like, you're going to see it all over. But at the same time, like I can understand the argument where there's people who are, tentatively speaking, just because there's not people who are from the state per se.
Their biggest complaint with some of them was the fact that, we run an Oregon show, but yet none of us are alum or none of us have ties to the program or recruits or anything. And that was a big, they're like, how can you get the real knowledge if you're not even on the ground?
And like I told you, those are the people who are salty because they would never take the time to do any of this anyways. So, calling them out. I'm going to clip this and make it a short. It's just going to have our voices behind Max's face. That'll be our short. He'll be like, great. Way to... Yeah.
Well, cool.
So I want to talk about that. Anything else you want to talk about, Max? Because I know, again, you're busy, so you've been here the entire time, which is great. You fell into the same trap Spencer did.
No, I mean, if like Derek said, if you get me talking about recruiting, I'll just keep going. But it's a super exciting time to be following Oregon right now. With spring football, I think like recruiting helps get you through the offseason, and it's crazy to think that spring football is already kind of starting next month. I think probably more towards the middle of the month. I just can't wait to kind of get my hands on that first press conference and just see what new kind of info we can get. Just to see all those new guys, in the green and yellow for the first time is going to be exciting. And then I can't wait to just get back out to Eugene for that spring game. So it's going to be fun. I think Oregon recruiting is going to pick up here in the near future. If you just look at what they've done historically, they'll have this class wrapped up for the most part by the time the season comes around, except for some blue chip guys that they're going to continue going for, maybe some flips that they work for late in the cycle. So there's going to be plenty to talk about, and I think Oregon's in a really good spot to make some major noise in the Big Ten.
Are you going to go to that the coaching clinic?
I don't think so. No. Yeah, I'm gonna be down here.
I think that was April 10th to the 13th or something like that. I think something like that.
It's like 2 weeks before the spring game.
Okay. What I might do is go fly into Eugene on Sunday or Monday, and then cover the team during the week with those last practices, and then culminate with the spring game. But I haven't made the trips just yet, so we'll have to see. I've wanted to maybe try going to a coach's clinic before, but I don't know if they're open to the media or not. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, because right now I looked at it. It was like $75 a person or something like that. Something like that.
Okay.
If I could get up there, I would. I would be like, no, that sounds like fun, but yeah, I'm not flying all the way to Eugene just for 3 days to do that. That'd be an expensive trip.
For sure.
spaz.
All right, Max.
Cough spaz.
Before we wrap, give me your inside scoop on any sleight of hand stuff that might be going on as far as what we might be seeing coming in the recruiting in the near future, aka Flips, Michigan.
Yeah, so with recruiting, like I was talking about earlier, I think Jaden Hudson is a guy that Oregon is in a really good spot to land in the 25 class. Nasir Wyatt from Modern Day, again, he's looking like he's going to take some trips and kind of look at the rest of his process. I still think Oregon's firmly the team to beat there. And I still think he's going to go to Oregon. I predicted him to Oregon in November. And everything I've seen since then is just, still making me confident that they're the team to beat.
So he's just taking those trips just to kind of do his diligent homework.
I mean, that's what I think. I mean, the recruitment is never over until it's over. Even if you get a guy verbally committed, they can still take other visits. And Oregon's, I feel like they've had a pretty high success rate because they don't say, hey, if you commit, you're cutting it off completely and we're restricting you from going anywhere. We've seen that with Clemson and I think Oklahoma as well. Look at Ashton Kozar.
He did it with Nico too.
There you go. So I think Oregon's just, doing things the right way. Letting guys kind of see the process through the way that they want. And as far as Michigan goes, I think that Keon Sabb was someone that they were looking at, but he obviously ended up at Alabama. So that was kind of a short-lived recruitment. These portal recruitments come together so quickly. I think one guy that if he were to hit the portal, I would keep an eye on is Mason Graham from Servite. I remember when I was flying out here, I didn't live in SoCal yet. I went to cover T-Mac at Servite before he committed, obviously, to Oregon and then Arizona. But Mason Graham was also at Servite, and he was a beast for the Wolverines this year. So, you got to tip your cap a little bit to Sharon Moore because he's done a really good job of keeping that roster together. I think a lot of people were probably surprised that we didn't see more departures or at least portal entries. But hey, you got that spring portal window, so you never know what's going to happen. But if Oregon were to add any more guys in the portal, I would probably think it would come along the D-line.
That's something that we talked about too, is that Oregon, when they get commits, we don't see a mass amount of decommits or flips last second from Oregon. Dante Moore was probably the last one.
But that's because Dillingham left.
Yeah, that and the Big Ten. I think it was really also UCLA was going to the Big Ten. There was a little bit of that. But, I mean, and now look where Dante Moore ended up again.
Yeah.
So,
crazy story.
Welcome home, back home.
Yeah, I think a lot of Oregon fans were like, I don't know, when they saw the stories coming out that he was going to try to take a visit, I feel like some of them were rubbed the wrong way. Like I was seeing comments on my stories like, he already turned us down once. I don't want him again. I think just like I said, like, if your primary recruiter, and Kenny Dillingham takes another job, like especially with quarterback, like that's the position that has the most volatile recruitments, I think, out of any. So I think a lot of us probably would have made the same decision were we in Dante's shoes, but maybe he ended up where he was meant to be all along.
Yeah, it's like I saw a whole lot of that too, where people were just like they were very tentative about even just bringing them back on campus and such. But I'm like, there's so much that goes into these recruitments that people are just so blissfully unaware of that it's like, how can you fault the kid for doing what he believes in the first place is, best for him at the time? I can't look at someone and fault him for it per se. And like you said, he ended up where he was meant to be all along. So here we are.
Yeah, I mean, especially when he came back, the same thing. I was like, I don't know how people are going to respond to this, especially with Dylan Gabriel. But with him saying, hey, I want to learn, I want to develop. I think that made people a lot happier to hear, to go, okay, he's not just wanting to start. He's like, I need to progress in my skill set and learn. And I think that was a huge positive.
Ruben don't
Yeah.
like me no more.
What did you do to Ruben?
No, I thought he was saying, "What's up with the hats?" I completely
That's
read
what I
that
thought.
wrong.
That's what I thought it
But
said
he was
too.
just
It's like,
saying, "What's up, man?" But that's my guy,
Yeah.
Ruben. Check out Ranchito Grill. They take care of you.
Yeah, that's Ruben. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Ruben's the man.
that's what I thought it said too. I was like, hats. What hats?
Did you guys get your Grass is Damn Green Eugene shirts?
No, not yet.
I should have worn my Dan is the
Thank
man
God,
shirt
Dan the
tonight.
man.
Oh, that's a shirt?
Yeah, I have that Dan is the man shirt.
Oh, you'll have to send me a picture of that.
I should have worn it tonight. I thought about it, but I was like, I gotta wear something different tonight. Otherwise, people are gonna be like, "You only have like 5 shirts."
That's how I feel
Yeah, Ruben,
sometimes.
you need to sponsor our show, man. We'll plug Ranchito Grill all day long.
Spaz working that sponsorship.
Hey,
Spaz.
you gotta get it somewhere.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair. We will gladly plug it all day long. All right. Is there anything else we want to cover, gentlemen, tonight?
No, I think Max has done a wonderful job being able to, plug us up on information of all sorts. So definitely appreciate you coming on and, giving us the opportunity to ask our questions and giving us the time and space. So it's been a lot of fun having you on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you guys for thinking of me and having me on. I'm always down for the duck talk, duck football, and recruiting. It's always fair game for me.
Yeah, we'd love to get you back on later on, sometime in the off season, maybe in the summertime. As a especially as fall camp starts or something like that, to like really talk maybe depth chart, kind of projections, stuff like that. When you actually start getting more news coming back in. But definitely. Your information is in the description of the video, so people can go follow you over there on your channel. But tell people where else they can follow you too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at mtorresports. Same username for both platforms. I've been cutting up a lot of clips for my podcast and putting them over on my Instagram. So check that out. You can listen to me on the Ducks Dish podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever you use. And then, the YouTube channel, and you can read me on ducksdigest.com. So those are all the best places to find me at.
Derek and Spaz, where can people find you if they want to do it?
You unfollowed me on Twitter. What did I do?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, God, now we're going to do this?
Oh, God. All right. Well, per usual, you can find me at High Top Sports Oregon. Our YouTube page, we just reached 330 subscribers in just over 3 weeks. So definitely appreciate the support there. Encourage you to keep following on Twitter, High Top Oregon. It's a good time there. So appreciate everybody who's already reached out, giving us a follow. It's been a lot of fun interacting with you guys.
Is that your goodbye song or something there, Derek? Been a lot of fun interacting with you guys. I'm over 300 subscribers. I'm out of here.
I fired him like 20 times. I fired you more than that. So, Spaz,
Yeah,
how can people find you?
A million times. I'm Spaz. I'm still here. Find me at Sean_SpazDrag on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and Instagram. And I hope to have boots on the ground. It's starting April. I plan on going to the spring game and go visit my buddy Ruben out there at Ranchito Grill. Going to get some good grub on, and then we're going to have a fun tailgate on Saturday and kick the season off right. Get to meet Max hopefully this time.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Hopefully.
Maybe Ryan Winters probably too, and
the man.
Yeah. I'm just Ben of Exploring with Ben and Sam right here on YouTube. That's where all you'll find all my other socials that I don't do anything with. So you can follow those too if you want, but there will be no content posted on those. Yeah. And then you'll find us here every Tuesday, except for next week. Next week, I think we're taking it off, right, guys?
That's correct.
This program is off next week. and then we'll be on the following week. And then you can follow me on Sunday night on the main channel for the College Football After Dark show, as always, for Mark. So other than that, gentlemen, I appreciate your time. And once again, everyone, thank you to Max for taking his time to come talk Ducks and recruiting with us. And until whatever date that is, not the 5th, I guess it's the 12th. We'll see you on March 12th for the next Oregon Ducks live show right here on the channel. So thank you, everyone, and have a great night. Where's